Hi friends, my name is Aaron, and this is episode 25 of the Mostly Yoga podcast. With me, I'm the host, this is my show. Today my guest is Floydd. Floydd is a fellow colleague of mine at home, and I first met him back when he was a guest teacher at my TT about a year ago. And back then he shared a lot of interesting things about yoga, history of yoga, philosophy, teaching philosophies, branding, and all that, which he'll get the chance to share again on this humble platform of mine. So yeah, I'm very excited for you to hear it and to know what I mean. If you're a new listener to the podcast, hello, welcome. And if you're a long-time listener, welcome back. I don't pop these podcasts out as often as I like to. The last one was about 3 weeks ago. It was with Amber. You can go listen to that. But I try my best. And if you like to show your support, you can go to coffee.com/mostlyyoga. That's spelled ko-fi.com/mostlyyoga to buy me a coffee. And coffee is just code for, a donation. So if you'd like to support, thanks a lot. And if you don't, it's fine. Still free to listen to. Let's talk about our sponsors today. As always, BC FLOWSTATE. Rediscover the way you move, feel, and perform through the use of natural and authentic movements that can help you build strength, regain your mobility, and reconnect yourself with your physical body. For content on mobility, movement, and feats of strength, just check out his Instagram at BC_FLOWSTATE. BC_FLOWSTATE. Yeah, he's my good friend. He's on he was a guest on 2 of the episodes of the podcast, so you can go and find him there as well. Spicy lovers and lovers of all things spicy. If you like chili, then spice up your life with this unique homemade cilantro chili by DOT CHILLI PEPPERS by my friend Steph. I don't really like spicy food. I can take spice, but I don't really like to douse it with a bunch of chili and all that. But I like this chili lah. So coming from me, someone who doesn't like super spicy stuff, I still enjoy this chili. It's got a really nice flavor. It's kind of tangy. It's like I put it on my meats. It just tastes really great. So it's the best chili I've ever tasted. I'm not even kidding. 10 out of 10. So for all the lovers of all things spicy and green and good, order yourself a bottle or 2 or 3 from her IG or Facebook page at red.chilli peppers. All the links will be in the description below. Anyway, back to the episode. We're talking about we talk about Floydd's interesting life. He only teaches 1 or 2 or sometimes he covers classes at home, but I think his normal slot is about a week, once a week. Or 2, I can't remember. So it's very rare to get a chance to go for his class. So if you do, it'll be a treat. He talks about his experiences with yoga and his transition from being a super hardcore Bikram practitioner to the more softer side, the more softer yogi he is now. Yeah, this is one of the more enjoyable. They're all enjoyable, but this is my chat with him was particularly enjoyable because it was just so easy to speak with him, and I learned a lot, and I'm excited to share what he shared with me with you. So yeah, without further ado, here's my guest, Floydd. Enjoy. Hello, Floydd. Thank you for coming today to join me in this wonderful day. It's a nice rainy day. We should all be in bed, but we're here. But I'm excited to be here. And yeah.
Thank you for inviting me to do this.
Yes,
the first for me. So yeah.
Okay, let's talk about yoga stuff. But so you're a very interesting person, and you have a very interesting background.
Do I?
You've traveled a lot. You've led a very well-traveled life. You've spent some time living in different places before you settled down in Singapore. And I guess to the people who don't know you, and even to the people that do know you, we want to find out how you came to be who you are.
Okay.
And whether that has been a part of the yoga journey and how the yoga has led you to a spiritual path as well. I guess what I want to ask is, of course, the origin story. And I'm sure you've told this, me as well, we've told this yoga origin story to many people many times. But if you're open to share with us that story once again on this humble platform of mine, how did yoga find you, and how has it made you the person you are today?
All right. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's very humbling. I do listen to your podcast and I love them. So yeah, it's a lovely day to actually have this discussion, I think. Yes, you mentioned that I might have told the story a lot of times. Actually, no, I haven't.
Really?
Because I don't like to talk too much about my own yoga journey to anybody. I don't mind sharing it with maybe it's the right time to share it now. But I am much more private about my yoga practice in general, which is part of the actual journey itself. Because I have a very strong opinion on the way yoga is seen by people at the moment. And I know you want to come back. Yes, I know you want to come back to that because I'm very and I think as teachers and as practitioners we have a duty around yoga, which is getting much larger as the world is getting much more complicated and much more connected. But we can come back to that. My origin story. Okay, so I'm South African, which in itself in Singapore I think is quite rare. There's not that many South Africans here versus French, Italian, Filipino, American, British, etc. So there's not many of us in Asia in general. So I studied and lived and studied and was born obviously in South Africa. And I came over to China, to Beijing when I was 22 years old. To teach English to little kids, which was amazing. It was wonderful. And I moved from there to Shanghai, and in Shanghai I met my first boyfriend, my first partner, who was Japanese, and he was a yoga teacher.
I think I remember. I heard this story before when you during a TT, but
yeah. So he's amazing, a lovely, wonderful guy who actually still lives in Singapore now.
But you met him in Shanghai.
I met him in China, in Shanghai, when I lived in Shanghai. And he was a yoga teacher, and he taught hot yoga, and I'd never done yoga before, ever, and I thought that was pretty.
This is Bikram.
Yes, Bikram, and he taught the full Bikram, like the 90-minute full-on everything, and he was into yoga, and I had never tried. I didn't like sports at all. I didn't find anything that suited me physically until I found yoga. But it was Bikram. And when I did it, I realized that I had at that point, I had the body type and I had the interest to do it because it was all very acrobatic, and Bikram can be quite acrobatic, right? So I did that and I loved it. And he was teaching, and I knew the other teachers of the studio in Shanghai. And
he taught this in English or in Chinese?
He taught in 3 languages.
Whoa. Oh,
he's
right.
fluent in Japanese, Chinese, and English.
Okay.
Mandarin and English. And it was amazing to hear him teach. He did one class, I remember, in 3 languages simultaneously, which I've never seen before and never seen since. So that was amazing. And I loved it. And I just thought, wow, okay, I found something to keep me healthy and fit. And because I was also much smaller at that time, and my body was 20 years younger than what it is now, I just took to it immediately, and it was a really easy fit for me. I didn't know any other kind of yoga existed until for the first couple of years, until I started doing things like vinyasa, etc. And then I moved to Singapore, and I kind of was doing a bit of yoga here and there, and trying to find the right place to do yoga in Singapore, which was quite difficult at the time. Remember, this is a long time ago, and this is 14 years ago in Singapore, something like that. At the time, I think Bikram and that kind of thing was very big here. Very super physical yoga was very big, and I just didn't find anywhere that was good. I didn't like the gyms. And then eventually I found Hom Yoga, which was wonderful. But Hom at that time was a hot yoga studio. Exactly. So I was doing Bikram here again, which was great, and it suited my physicality. And I did ballet as well. So because I couldn't find... I was doing yoga and I did ballet. I was an adult ballet student for 5 or 6 years in Singapore with Singapore Dance Theatre. And that was wonderful. That was amazing. But so they kind of went together. Ballet and yoga went very well together for my body type and my temperament as well. And then...
Body type and temperament.
Yeah. So the type of person that I was. And I was quite...
Reactive?
Not reactive, but I was quite fiery at that time compared to now. Ooh. I was quite fiery and quite like ready, like kind of gung-ho. You know, when you're much younger and you're not as scared of injuries, or you're more open to everything at a certain point in your life. And so Bikram kind of suited me in that way. And it was hot and it was fiery, and it was just, full on. I think a lot of people start full on in yoga. I think. Well, I did, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And ballet was amazing as well, because ballet taught you about the articulation and the different kind of alignment and rhythm and intuition in body movement, which I must say that things like Bikram was so specific. Ballet was a lot more fluid, even though ballet within itself as a dance is not particularly fluid. It's a very rigorous exercise. So I was doing a lot of rigorous stuff. To a degree, ballet was a little bit more fluid. I tried modern dance, I did pole dancing as well. I love anything that's about movement. And so eventually I stopped doing ballet and continued more with yoga. But then the big change came, which was when I was at home, one of the teachers said to me, "Why don't you come and do the teacher training?" Which was yin yoga.
So you started with yin first?
Yes. My way into yoga, my way into teaching was reversed versus most people who will go for vinyasa or like a ashtanga or a hot yoga teacher training. My first one was yin yoga, which was such a lovely thing. But it changed the way I viewed yoga completely, and it's changed my whole life completely in that instant. And one of the teachers here, who I love very much, she said to me, "There's this opening in this training," and it wasn't at Hom Yoga, so she wasn't trying to sell me into anything. It was actually completely separate. She said, "There's this training with this yin teacher who's amazing. Do you want to try and see?" So I was like, "Okay, I'll go and do it." And it was a yin yoga Chinese medicine training with a teacher here. Her name is Jo Fee.
All right.
Yes, yeah. And I did my first ever training with her. I don't know how many hours it was. These hours, I get confused. But that was life-changing for me, because I never thought about yoga in that way. I'd only been to one yin yoga class before that, and at that time I was doing obviously Bikram, hot, vinyasa, and bits of ashtanga as well as a practitioner.
How did the yin thing come about, and how did it take such a huge impact? Because you only went to one class, and coming from that place of like Bikram, strong, and then one yin was able to shift you.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's well, maybe I'm being a bit inaccurate. Maybe it wasn't one class, but it was maybe like 2 or 3. But I never knew what yin really was, because I didn't realize it was the counterpoint to yang yoga in a way, and just the way that this teacher conducted the training, first of all, the quietness with which he conducted it, and the rigor, but it was rigor that was not fiery, if that makes sense. So it was rigorous in a very Controlled, graceful is the best word I can think of for the way that we were taught that, and I just took to it immediately. It was exactly the thing that I thought I needed in my life at the time, but didn't know. Like most things you don't know you need until you actually get them, right?
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was so rhythmic and beautiful, and we would chant in the beginning of every class, and then we were to recite all the organs of the body in Chinese, and I did that too because it was a Chinese medicine module.
And you're fluent in Chinese?
I'm not fluent in Chinese, but I can speak a little bit of it. Yeah, because I live there.
You can get by lah.
Yeah. Lana like Allah. That's Singlish. But Mandarin, yes, I did speak. Okay. I can speak some, and I did learn it when I was in China to read, write, and speak some. And so the training was life-changing because it was so quiet and so slow, and it taught me a whole new respect for what yoga could be in my life. It was very difficult practice. That's what struck me in the beginning, was my natural ability at that time was to go towards yang yoga, to go towards something which was more fiery and physical and demanding, handstands and all that kind of stuff, like all the funky stuff that we see on social media these days. But the quieter art of yin yoga was very underappreciated at the time, especially, right? I felt this is about 6 years ago now, maybe. It was still underappreciated, and you would struggle, I think, at the time to find yin yoga on anyone's. Never mind things like restorative and yoga nidra, which I eventually went into. But even yin yoga at the time, I remember it not being as popular as what it is now. I see much more of that kind of thing now.
People are getting a little bit more awareness of it, and they need that balance, especially in the hustle bustle of Singapore life. Yeah.
I completely agree, but it's a slow burn, I think. And even in the training, I remember there were a lot of teachers there who had come from strong yang backgrounds and couldn't quite get what yin was really, or how you could teach yin in a more quiet way. And up to this day, I still see teachers teaching yin yoga in a very yang way, which I find quite odd. Okay.
Right? I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. My takeout of the training was that it had to be super quiet and very, because the basis of the training, and anyone out there who knows this mode of training will please forgive me if I'm getting it wrong, but my understanding was that it was not an alignment-based practice. It was something which had to do more with your individual anatomy and skeleton than with alignment, which goes on regardless of your particular body type.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And it was almost a shock to me to think that, okay, maybe you could do yoga like this and just work with your own body and your own temperament, instead of coming from the Bikram school, which is very much you do it or you don't, it's this way or the highway kind of thing,
It's very simple.
Exactly. Yin yoga found to be much more in this mode that I learned, much more intuitive and much more quiet and incredibly difficult, because you had to sit there in these postures and just be with yourself, which is something we never ever do. And that was really the thing which got me like, wow, there's this way to be, which is not previously what I thought yoga was, which was it's not super physical, it's not super hot, it's not super demanding. It's a completely different way to approach yoga and a completely different way to approach your life, because I think what you do,
it's the metaphor.
Exactly. Yeah. What you do on the mat, people always say what you do on the mat, what you do in life. They translate, exactly. And I remember at that time being really hot-tempered, and I was doing a lot of hot yoga, so and my constitution is a fire constitution anyway. And I used to have a terrible temper many years ago. So I think the yin came at a good time. Right. But then integrating that into my life took a very long time and took a lot of patience, because yin really forces you to just sit and be, and that's not something that we're used to. But that type of training, that training and that mode of practice actually affected the way I teach yoga completely. And it started to take, the way I do yoga now started to take its roots in that training, which is my first one. After that, I did the Vinyasa 200 hours, which was lovely. It was with home yoga, so it was super fun and I loved it. And then I went on to do kids yoga. I did an Ashtanga thing as well. I'm very much about like learning as many things as possible, which I love. I went into the kids training. I did Ashtanga training. I did another yin yoga training. I did yoga nidra, and then I also did recently restorative yoga. So I went on to do a lot of other things, but my way has become a lot more towards the quieter arts of yoga.
Interesting.
Also because when I started doing yoga, I was in a major depression at the time due to a lot of different things that happened to me. And yoga I always say yoga kind of saved my life, which is why I don't talk about it so often, because it's quite a difficult thing to talk about, which is fine for now. But it did kind of save my life. It did kind of step in and direct me, because when you're in a bad place, you can go any number of ways. You could go alcoholism or drugs or whatever the case may be.
Whatever you latch onto, that's the, if it's something bad, you're going to spiral. Yeah,
exactly. And I just happened to latch onto yoga, which was the best thing to latch onto and this I think still is. And I look at the photographs of myself in my yoga training. I was really thin at the time, really lean bodied. And I just remember why I was. It wasn't the training. It was partly the training, but it was actually other things happening at the time. So it was a very formative time of my life. When I did that yoga training, and then the second one, the first one being the yin, the second one being the vinyasa. So yeah, and then ever since then, I've my whole goal with yoga now is to calm myself down, is to use it. How can I say this? This is an important thing to say. My goal with yoga now, both my practice and my teaching, is to try to work a little bit more slowly, more consciously into the practice. Now, I'm very aware that people say that as they teach, and we read that a lot, but do we practice it? I'm not so sure. I love my practices to be simple. Like I went through the phase of all these crazy postures and handstands and all this kind of like fun stuff. But now, at nearly 41 years old, I'm just more like, if I can just do the simple sun salutation and execute it with grace and with simplicity and feel good about that, that's enough for me. I don't need to do 150 things and put them on Instagram. And I mean, social media is a different topic, and that's what translates into my classes these days, I hope. The simplicity and slowness and a bit of patience that comes into the practice. I'm really not interested in lots of crazy things. There's plenty of teachers out there who will do that.
I guess like when you first start out teaching, or when you even first start out with the practice of yoga, you are excited. You do want to try all the moves, and you want to achieve all the things that you want to achieve.
Yeah.
The handstands, the full splits, the foot behind the head.
Yeah.
But then as time goes by, the physical, as fun as it is, it translates to other things, because then you've spent more time learning what the true yoga is, and then that is where stuff off the mat happens, which translates to in that direction.
For me, I that's why with social media, I mean, I might as well talk about it now. I have a huge issue with the way yoga is perceived or projected in social media. I think it's damaging. I think I've seen it be very damaging. I mean, I see students coming and wanting to do handstands and all kinds of things. I always ask people, why do you want to do that? And most of the time they can't answer. It's a very common thing. I want to do this.
Why?
Why do you want to do that? Oh, but I saw it on social media, or I think it'll feel good or look good. I was like, okay. I had a friend, not a friend, I knew somebody who wanted to do a specific yoga type thing. And I asked him, why do you want to do that? And he's like, oh, I just want to show my friends. So I'm not going to teach that to you. I don't think you... I think it's damaging, and I think it's difficult to do that. And I think what we see, all the stuff that we see on social media about people practicing all the time, and people doing physical practice all the time, and doing amazing, beautiful backbends in like things like king pigeon or things like king pigeon or full splits. You know, when I studied the first module, when you learn about the anatomy of the body, and this was a bit of shocking for me, you learn that some things are not actually achievable by all bodies. And that's really, really struck me as well. Like some people will never be able to do a backbend in that way and lift the foot to touch your head like you do in king pigeon, right? King pigeon is, I think that's the or mermaid, or whatever the case may be. There's some things that's not physically possible and could be damaging if you do them, because if you understand your own anatomy better, you'll get to the point where you know, like, I can't go any further than this. And then yet you see on Instagram all these people who are like ballet dancers who have got very open skeletons and very open muscles doing all these crazy things, and then you want to be like that, but your anatomy is saying no.
There's a misconception for sure, and that's the thing about social media, regardless of whether it's Instagram yogis or if it's even some YouTuber who got rich at the age of 16, you know, and look at him flying on his private jet. You look at that, and then you look at yourself, oh, I'm like 30 and I don't have a private jet. Oh, my life must suck.
Yeah.
That guy can do the handstands. I've been learning yoga for 10 years. I can't do a crow. I'm pretty shit. It's unfortunate that social media has gone down that path. And it is part of, like, people want to see the guy do a one-handed thing off the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve inversion. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do a full splits. There's nothing wrong to chase the asana. But then it is a good question to ask why you want to do it, because if it's led by the ego, I want to show off to my friends, okay, but if you hurt yourself in that process, that's your fault, not anybody else's fault. If you want to do it to progress in your own way, sure, but then, hey, the limitations of the body is like that. You might never be able to do it. Can you be okay with that? And then if you stay with the yoga long enough, the yoga will teach you, the yoga will take care of you, the yoga will nurture you, and to show you that maybe you are that particular body type that will never be able to do this. So what? That's okay, because that's not what yoga is about.
Well, exactly. I think I agree completely with you. The other point along that side is that there's not only one way to do yoga. There's not only that way to do yoga, but that's the way we always see.
Because yoga is seen as a physical practice, as an exercise.
Exactly. I mean,
if you're not moving, you're not doing yoga.
I never see yin yoga on social media, ever. I hardly ever see restorative yoga on social media, unless you're following particularly specific schools. I never see Kundalini. I hardly ever see Universal. I see Vinyasa all the time. I see Ashtanga all the time. Think about what you see on social media of yoga. 99% of the time, the Vinyasa, Ashtanga, or postures derived from those practices.
Right.
Yin yoga, hardly ever restorative, hardly ever. Nidra, what's to photograph? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not as physically attractive, they're not as sexy. And I think that leads to a huge misconception of what yoga is. It leads down a very narrow path, at least in my experience. And I used to follow a lot of yoga influencers or whatever you call them, but I kind of deleted most of them because they're not really relevant. Actually, I mean, I am on social media. I'm terrible on social media anyway. But there's more than one way to do yoga, to engage in yoga, and to enjoy yoga. And I think that personally, I think it's kind of my job as a teacher to say, well, there are other ways that might suit you better, and that might be better for your temperament, for your body type, for your stage of life, than just going mindlessly into the first thing that you see. I always encourage people, I think when you were in the training when I said go and do everything first. Try all the types and then find out what it is that you really like. And it might not be the sexiest thing, but I've seen a couple of people that I know and love very much go down much quieter paths for yoga.
Because that's their truth, lah.
Yes, because it suits them, it suits their stage. And I mean, things change all the time. Just because you're doing restorative now, or you're into restorative yoga, doesn't mean you can't do anything else. It's about being intuitive to your body type and what's happening to you at the moment. Like, I'm going through a very difficult time at the moment for various reasons. And most of my practice now is just calming myself down. So a lot of it, I do yin yoga in the morning, which is odd, right? You don't usually do yin in the morning. Yin is more in the evening, because it's yin, yeah. It's the moon. It's more of an evening practice. I do restorative yoga in the morning. And because I need it, And that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I do yoga nowadays, my own practice. What do you need today? Do you need a strong practice? Because we're yoga teachers, right? We know how to do it ourselves. We don't need to follow YouTube videos. We can actually formulate our own practices in our head and our heart. But step back a little bit and realize, what do you need today?
And that is something important to want to teach to people, because we are yoga teachers. We're not asana teachers. We're not posture teachers.
Exactly.
Anybody, if you come to a yoga class long enough, you learn how to do a warrior two. You learn how to do a arm balance. But then, what are you, like as a teacher, what is your role? You need to be able to uphold that role to a certain standard, and to understand the topic, the nature of our subject that we're trying to impart. And I guess what you said also, like, it made sense, like, what do you need today, and how can you to share that in a class,
I mean, practically when you share in class, I always like to give people options. I always like to tell people what we're heading towards today. What's our goal today? And sometimes with the it's interesting, the need thing, because, and I think a lot of yoga teachers are gonna like want to kill me when I say this, but oftentimes, should I admit this in public? I think I should, because I think it's a very true truth to me. Many times I don't plan my yoga class before I go in.
Ooh, controversial.
And I'll tell you why. Because once you get into the class and you see the people who are there,
I agree.
Every yoga teacher knows this. But I don't know if we don't like to admit it, or it's an ego thing, or it's a pride thing. When you get into the class and you see who's there, not just about physical ability, not just about beginner status.
It's energy as well.
It's energy. It's how are people feeling. And the minute, if you are at all intuitive, the minute you step into a room of people, whether it's professionally, work-wise, family, you will be able to feel what they feel like. I've gone into classes hoping to teach, I think it was peacock or I can't remember, some flying pigeon or something. I've gone in hoping to teach that and seen people would never, within the first asana, I was like, they'd never be able to do this. And if I push this, it's going to be uncomfortable, difficult, and unnecessary for them. So a lot of the times I just have an idea, especially with yin for me is different. When I'm teaching a vinyasa class, I have an idea about what I'd like to teach, but it's plotting every single thing out, I found actually restricted me a lot, and it was quite damaging to myself and the class. I do a lot of practice on my own, and I formulate lots of sequences on my own, which I like to incorporate into the class, but not to the point where I'm stuck on them. You've got to see when people are struggling. There's my point of view is there's lots of teachers out there who will be like
stick to the plan.
Yeah, exactly. The alpha teacher. This is the plan. This is the way. And there's a lot of practices which demand that Ashtanga, which are the fixed sequences, Ashtanga, Bikram. Exactly. There's a lot of fixed sequences out there which will demand that you do that. I'm not sure if I need to be the teacher that people come to for a fixed sequence that demands that.
Wow.
There's definitely a space for that, for sure. And I will go. I've been to many an Ashtanga class and many a Bikram class and experienced that and needed it. But at this point, I'm not sure if I'm the teacher that if I want to be the teacher that people would come to for that kind of practice. I'd rather that they step in and feel. I'm going to just backtrack a little bit. In my training, one of the things, the yin training, one of the things that the teacher told us, which I never thought about before, she said, people come to spend time with you, which I think I said this to you when I was in your training.
I've heard this before, yeah.
By the way, for everyone out there, I was part of Aaron's teacher training. You were second teacher training. You had multiple teacher trainings.
Second. It was last year.
Yeah. Yes, I was in.
You taught one I
taught a module, and then I was exactly. So that's when I referenced in being in Aaron's training. She said that people will come. She said two things which really have stuck with me as a teacher. Yes. She said that. First thing that I remember that she said, people come to spend time with you. And this is not about being a famous teacher at all. That wasn't the way I took it at all. What it struck me as was that people come to be with you and your energy. And if you think to yourself, like, how many times have you looked at a yoga schedule and thought, I don't like that teacher so much, or yes, I love that teacher, I'd rather go to his class. You know what I mean? And it's not about being an influencer. This is about what you give to people, consciously or unconsciously. And that struck me as very touching. And I've actually realized it in my short teaching career, that they do come to spend time with you. They just want, and some people, when I teach yin yoga, some people just come there and sleep. Just let them do that. I love it. I think it's a compliment.
Yeah.
That's the way I kind of learned that if you want to just be here and sleep, and that's fine. I just don't snore, then I have to wake you up. But I've had people doing that. And also, onto the second point on that, is that you don't know how much people sacrifice to get to your yoga class. Who's had to bring people, parents or brothers and sisters, to mind their kids while they come to yoga? Who has had to catch 3 buses and 2 trains to get to this class at that time? So the point is that people are intentional about what they want. People are coming to you for a specific reason, and your duty is therefore to serve them the best that they can, the best that you can. If you know what I mean.
I do.
It's a very sobering thought that someone might have to come, might have to save up money just to be here. In a place, Singapore is there's a lot of money everywhere in Singapore, right? We take it for granted that people can just come and be in your class, but you don't know what they've done to get here.
True.
You don't know what they've
Braving the rain, waking up early.
Exactly. Having kids minded while they do this, coming in from terrible jobs out there, especially in the circumstances we're in now. So all that kind of thing drives me to be more thoughtful about who I'm teaching. And it comes back to the point of the energy in the class. When you walk in as a teacher, what are you feeling from the class? And sometimes I just sit there. In many of my yoga, especially yin yoga, in the beginning, I'll just sit with them. And we'll just sit in a meditative pose, and then I'll try and feel out what is actually happening here. And sometimes, every time you feel something, but sometimes you can feel there's a heaviness in the air, or you can feel that there's a lightness, or that people are very tired, or they're energized, and you don't have to say anything, you just have to feel it, and then you've got to move from there. And I think that is a really, really important part of being a teacher of any kind. You feel what's in the room, and you move from there. Also, it can go into becoming very egoistic. I don't think my students come to my classes because I'm going to push them super hard. I don't think I'll ever be that teacher. But they are coming for other reasons. As I said, I've had people fall asleep in my classes, in my yin classes before, in Nidra and in yin yoga. I haven't taught restorative yet, but I know that I fall asleep in my own restorative practice. But yeah, to feel the people that you're with is a very, very important part. And you don't have to touch them. You just have to observe and see where they're at on that day, at that time, and then move from there. That's really my biggest philosophy about yoga.
How do you want your students to feel after class, regardless of what class type it is?
I want them to feel fulfilled, and I want them to feel acknowledged. Like I've acknowledged what they needed in the class. It's a hit and miss. I mean, you can't please everybody. Yeah. It's interesting because sometimes you get a little bit of validation. And I remember teaching a class here in this very room, and it was something like a Tuesday night or something, vinyasa, and Tuesdays at the studio. When I used to teach Tuesdays, they were hardcore, right? Because everyone wanted to come in we're into the week now, we're getting ready. And I really wanted to do a slow flow yoga that day. I don't know why. And then I saw a student who I know and I like very much, and she's really powerful. And I thought, oh my goodness, I want to teach slow flow, but the student is she's almost like a power yoga or Ashtangi type person, right? And she's done, when you read the headstand, she does all of them. When you give people the opportunity to do like a pincher, she's into it, and I've taught her before. And I thought, oh gosh, I don't know if I should teach the slow flow with the students in this class. Is she going to be mad at me afterwards? And I did. I taught the slow flow. And then afterwards she said to me, That was the best thing that I could have done today. And I was so relieved. And I said to her, I said to her, oh, I thought you would be really upset because I know that your practice is quite strong. She said, yeah, but today I'm not feeling for a strong practice. I'm feeling very sore. I'm feeling not quite good about myself. So I needed that soothing practice. And it was such a great validation for me to hear that coming from someone like that. And more of a point to say like, okay, trust your intuition a little bit more. Trust your intuition a little bit more, and don't be so afraid to be who you are and show that to people. Another thing that I learned or that was said in one of my trainings is your students will find you. And I truly believe that they will. If they haven't already, they will find you. This to all the yoga teachers out there who are starting. They will find you for sure. Somehow.
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
I think
like
so.
There are the strong teachers, there are the
and
soft teachers.
Exactly.
And the people that resonate with you will find you to go to your class, because that's your style, that's your who you are, the way you teach. Yeah.
Exactly.
I really like that. Did you face any challenges when you first started teaching?
The challenges all came from myself.
Ooh.
They all came from myself. I was lucky enough to start teaching at home yoga, which was quite rare in those days. And the challenge was really always about how I thought I would be perceived, or how I wanted to be perceived. And this moves towards a very important thing, which is your voice as a teacher and your philosophy as a teacher. And as a new teacher, I think we don't have philosophies. We're forming them as new teachers.
Or we're taking them from example from other people.
Exactly. You're formulating your way forward, and you don't know what
we're inexperienced.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're still new. I just finished the TT like a month ago. What am I going to do? Yeah,
of course, and totally. But that's where I think the biggest fear came from. I was like, okay, well, how am I going to do this? But how am I going to be seen? And I know a young teacher who's starting out now, and she's very nervous about how people see me and how will I be perceived. And there's no way to get through that but just to go and do it, and stumble and fall and make your way. And the thing is, when you stumble and fall,
that's the lesson, isn't it? That's how you learn.
But many people don't know that you're stumbling as a teacher. Sometimes you be in a class with students who have no idea that you don't know what you're doing. They don't know that. But in your mind, you're sabotaging yourself.
Wow.
You know.
What my first yoga class that I ever taught, and a friend of mine, Shahao, he's been on the episode before, so he went to my class. Just we didn't really know each other back then, but he went to my first class, and after that class, I remember that first class I was teaching Birds of Paradise as my peak.
Wow.
And because I was at the studio where you had to teach like a curriculum, so they had
got it.
Priyan's place,
It was prescribed.
Yes. So that particular day was Birds of Paradise, so I had to teach it. And my first class, I planned an hour sequence, but I finished everything in half an hour. So I was like, oh shit. The other half an hour, the other like 15 minutes, because the last 15 minutes was the peak, the demo, right? So the 15 minutes inside, I just did like random stuff, like Warrior 1, Warrior 2, reverse, side, white leg fold. Then I just like fillers, like random stuff, just fall forward, just do this, just do that. And I planned a very intricate sequence to spin around, and then I ended up spinning all over the place.
Good Lord.
And then some people were facing the back, some people were facing the front. It's like, oh shit, I'm bombing so bad.
Teacher trauma.
And then at the last part, when I was demoing, okay, so you wrap your hand around this, and then when I was doing it, I was like falling, couldn't keep my balance. And then at the end of class, I felt like that was the worst experience I ever had. And then my friend said like, yeah, I couldn't tell it was your first class, it was fine. So then how does that make any sense, Because in my mind, and from what I saw, were we not in the same room together? How did you not see how terrible that went? But he was like, I don't know, I felt fine. And that is
self-sabotage.
Yeah, and that's something you need to, like, as the teacher, you need to sort of get past it, whether it was bad, we just need to, if it was really, really horrible, everybody could tell. It's just something you need to live with, and you need to overcome and to let go of. And to progress, because at that point, you are like, it's your first class. What were you expecting? Exactly. Of course you're gonna bomb. It's your first class ever.
Exactly. Well, yeah, my first class ever, was when I was teaching. It was a teacher training. It was in a training when a teacher didn't come to. For some reason she couldn't come here, and they asked me to cover. It was only 3 days into my teacher training.
What?
It was crazy. It was really. I think was it 3 days in? I'm sure I told you guys the story before. It was the most terrifying thing ever. So I took the class as having only trained for a few days. Oh my god, it was terrifying. But the students knew.
Oh, they knew it.
They
Yeah.
They knew that, and they applauded afterwards. They were like, "Wow, well done!" And it was so encouraging. The point being, people don't want to see you failing. I think that's important to remember. Your students don't want to see you failing. They're coming to be with you. You know, they don't want to see you failing. They want to see you as human, but they don't want to see you fail. Who wants to see somebody else fail in a yoga class? It's not that it's not possible, but it doesn't make sense. They want you to succeed. They want to be with you on the journey that you're going on. So if we remember that as teachers, at least in my experience, I've never felt that any student ever wanted me to fail. They always want you to have a good time and show them how to have a good time and enjoy the session. Maybe have a laugh, maybe have a sweat. You know what I mean? I don't see students as wanting you to.
Yeah, nobody comes in like, all right, let's what can I make fun of the
How
teacher
can I
with
criticize?
today? Yeah.
Exactly.
No one's gonna do that.
Exactly. At least not in my experience, no. And as a student, I would never want that. Then I wouldn't come to the teacher's class if I didn't feel for that teacher in a good way.
I guess like as a student back then, when I did come for a class, sometimes if the class wasn't up to my expectation, I would be like, I didn't get enough of a sweat. Oh, I didn't. This teacher pushed me too hard. I didn't really like the style. And maybe that criticism towards that teacher, I would say as a student, I would, it's the teacher's fault. The sequence wasn't that fantastic. Not very good. But then now that you become a teacher, you realize that, okay, maybe back then as a student, I was like making fun of that teacher. But then like, are students now making fun of me? You know, oh no, it's my sequence. Like somebody in the downward dog is giving me a ugly face. You know, it's like, oh no, he hates it. He hates being here. He hates me. And it's after a while, you know that it's not about you. The yoga face is often the most hostile face you ever get. But then after class, you'll be like, hey, thanks. Then you're like, hey, I thought you hated it. Like you gave me that face that you hated it, but afterwards you were like super smiley and everything. So all these things are happening in class. You're picking up on it, and it is just spiraling out of control in your mind.
Of course. And yeah, it can. And I've had those experiences, not recently, but I have had them when I've thought, oh my God. And I have had some terrible classes, don't get me wrong. Definitely.
They exist.
Of course they exist. Of course they exist. But when you do like a crazy sequence and you can't remember the other side.
Oh.
You know what? But you know what?
Yeah.
There's a couple of aspects to that kind of thing. When I did that, I did some really, I don't know what it was. I remember this class, and it was such a lovely bunch of people, and I know the students. And I said,
they'll help you.
They did.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to get to. Going back to my point of no one wants to see you fail. They want to exercise. They want to work out. They want to feel good, right? And so I actually said to them, did I do this side already? And they were like, yeah, you did. Okay,
Yeah.
let's switch the other way then. And then they laughed and we carried on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's about how you hold that space.
Exactly.
Right?
And I've seen teachers fall in front of me.
Yeah.
I've seen teachers not be able to do postures in front of me. And we're human beings as well. You know, we're not gymnasts. We're not in a circus. And I think that mostly students appreciate that. I saw a teacher that I absolutely love fall out of a posture while demoing it. It was a difficult one. It was a side plank.
With grabbing the foot.
Yes, it was a side plank. Not the star, but it was like a tree in a side plank. It was very... What is the Ashtanga name for you?
V, starts with a V.
Yeah. It's the Ashtanga one for the people who are listening, where you hand behind your back and you grab your toe,
It's
but
like
it was on the side.
half-bound lotus side plank.
Yeah, exactly. Half-bound lotus side, exactly. And she fell out of it while demoing it.
Yeah.
And I could see she was put off, but I wasn't at all. I was like, well, I'd probably fall that too if I was doing it as a student.
Yeah.
But no, I think you should go into a class assuming that nobody wants you to fail there. You go into class as a human being. And as I think I was saying something earlier, sometimes I just sit with my students and I'll say to them, I'm not sure how to start the class today. I'm not sure how, and just let me think and feel.
That's such an amazing thing to say, because
Yeah.
like
They love
you're being
it.
honest, you're
Yeah.
being authentic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to teach. I'm like give me some time
Exactly.
to
It's
read
not
the room.
I'm asking for 10 minutes. I'm asking for like a couple of seconds, because I'll go into, especially yin yoga, which I teach on a Friday. A lot of the time I used to teach yin yoga in the studio on a Friday. And people are really tired when they come in, so you've got to read them very carefully, because either they're going to be irritable because it's Friday, or they're going to be overexhausted. And I'll just sit there in the beginning and say, how should we start today? And I'll think, and I'll look at them, and they'll just be looking at me with these lovely, hopeful faces. And some of them will be smiling because they know that's what I do, and they're kind of up for it. And like then I'll just say, okay, we'll start in. I'll say, because I'm feeling this way, or I feel that the class is this way. We'll just start in a child's pose, or we'll start in a savasana, or something that they don't expect, and then you just move like that. At least in my experience, that's helped me to be more human in front of my students. I think they appreciate it.
I'm sure they do.
I hope that they do. I hope that they do. So, the tea.
I thought of something. So I guess, what are some tips that you can advise to teachers if they do forget a side? Because I have a few tricks that I know.
What are your tricks? Tell me your tricks.
One trick is to you ask the help of the students. Like you look at you find the regular strong practitioner that's always in class, and you look at what he's doing. Sometimes people, if you skip something, they will still do the same thing, and then you're like, oh no, sorry guys, wait a minute, let's backtrack. And you go, okay, I forgot this, let's do that. If it's too far gone, you can either bring it back at some part of the sequence. Like if you forgot wild thing, I always forget my wild things. You wild thing here, you can always wild thing at any point. It doesn't have to be at a specific spot.
Exactly.
And then I think it's often just like ask for help. Like, just like, guys, I forgot where we are now. Are we on the left side or right side? Then someone will say, right side, left side. What,
there will always be someone.
There will always be someone.
Always be someone who's willing to volunteer the information. But that said, what the tips are, my biggest thing is don't plan sequences that are too complicated. Because number one, you can't change them when you get into the situation, and number two, you can't remember them. So what I always do personally is I always do a couple of postures and break it with a vinyasa. Exactly. And I don't like my things to be too complicated. They start to annoy me and people as well. The other thing that I learned quite quickly was to observe your middle range student as a gauge for the practice. I.e., the person who is not the superstar and is not the weakest link, but somebody who's in the middle, and then you can gauge how effective your practice is. If that middle person is struggling, chances are quite a few people are struggling in the class as well. If they're sweating too much, or if they're struggling to do something, they engage from that person, and then accordingly take it down a little bit if you need to.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, I thought that was and somebody told me that, and I've always used it ever since. Actually, somebody told me that they watched me as that student. One of my teachers told me that I was the mid-range of the class at that class. She's like, I'll always watch you, and if you're struggling, then I know that I need to pull this practice back.
That's
or
true.
Something like that.
Yeah, actually, it goes back to like finding a student that you can anchor on. Like if it's your friend, and even if your friend is super strong, if you can see something is off, you can tell, and then that's where you adjust or you do something about it.
I've also, when I used to teach much more strong vinyasa classes, I've also just stopped classes. When I see people struggling, when I planned a sequence, even though I do plan sequences sometimes, I do. When I planned it and I see they're struggling and really dying, then
abandon the plan.
Exactly. And stop. Actually, I've stopped the class before.
And what do you mean?
Just to let them breathe.
Like a break.
Yes. I said, okay, I see that you guys are, it's hot. You can feel in the room. You can feel in the room that people are really struggling and they're not managing. And this is not about being overachieving. This is about people who are really struggling and they're getting overly tired and possibly annoyed. I've actually just stopped classes in the middle of it and either had them sit in, and I've said to them, this is a lot to take. And I'll finish whatever last movement I'm doing, and then we either stand in like a samasthiti type or like a mountain pose, or I get them to sit and breathe, and then we'll start again.
That's interesting, because you need to recalibrate.
And you need to
the breath. Yeah.
Exactly. They need to recalibrate. They need to just calm down a little bit, especially when the classes are full and it's very, very hot, and you're teaching something a little bit challenging. It can happen,
right?
And especially if it's a sequence with lots of different movements in it, and you're going from one to the other, like vinyasa.
It's very ambitious, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I've actually stopped them. I remember a couple of times, and I saw this one girl. She was sweating so much, and I know her, and I was like, oh no, I don't want her to suffer like this. And she was really struggling, so I was like, okay, no, we'll stop, regroup, and I'll rethink the rest of it. So I've had to do that a couple of times, and it's not something I would advise, but it's something which has worked for me, because I'm trying to read the room. Because as a yoga teacher, you've got to read the room all the time,
adapt. You got to keep
constantly read the room, constantly adapt. And what are the other tips?
This is interesting. This is this is very interesting.
It's interesting. I don't know what the teachers are tips they're giving you.
It's a lot about room management. So how you, if it's a hot class, open the door, open the window, turn off the heaters halfway. No one's gonna complain about it if everybody's dying. Exactly. If it's a full class of 40 people and it's a hot class and your sequence is very ambitious, it's okay to turn off the heaters. You turn it on again like 10 minutes later, no big deal. Turn on the fans if you want to. Just let people breathe.
Yeah.
And people will appreciate it, because then if someone, like if I'm in a hot class and we're all dying, we're like, the students are one. You are the teacher and the students are one. So it's like you and them. They are together, and then they see you as the figure, right? So you have a lot of authority and you have a lot of power. And if they see you like, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna turn on the heat. They will see you walk over there, and they hear a click.
Yeah.
And then the room, it starts to stop. And people are like, oh, okay, he knew that we were dying. He turned it off. He noticed it. He's saving us,
He's saving us.
Yeah, because you can tell. Or if someone like opens the door, or if you hear the fans on, people know that you are trying to help them, and they know that he's paying attention. It's small things like that.
Yeah, I think it really helps. It really helps. People come again. It's the same thing. People come to be with you.
Yeah.
I'm not a drill sergeant. I'm a human being, and I'm trying to just enjoy and get through things as well. I think that empathy that you have to have with students, I think, is so important, because we don't get empathy in any other parts of our lives, or very often we don't. We don't know why people come to yoga. We misconstrue the fact that people come to yoga for a workout. I think that many people do. Don't get me wrong. Many people come for many other reasons. Just go into a yin yoga class and you'll see. Go into a restorative class and you'll see. Go into a yoga nidra class and you'll see why people come to yoga for other reasons other than a workout.
To come to yoga purely for an exercise purpose is a very simplistic way of looking at the practice. Yes, you move. Yes, you sweat. Maybe you lose weight. Maybe you gain some muscle. But then, to only come for that, it's such a simple, and it is, but it's a very viable reason to come. That's true.
It's a valuable and it's a start, and many people will be there and only ever be there as yoga practitioners. They will only ever be in the physical. But again, look at all the other practices that we have surrounding the constellation of yoga experiences, from Kundalini to power yoga to all kinds of different forms, and you'll see, you used to go into yoga nidra class. Why are this? I always think to myself, yoga nidra, and for those guys who've never been to yoga nidra is like a yogic sleep, which is really about taking the mind into a more subconscious state. And it's a verbal exercise for the teacher and a relaxing kind of a lying down type of physical. It's not even a practice. It's actually just a physical. It's a, how do I say?
How do you?
There's no posing.
It's more of like
it's
a
about
calming
receptivity.
of the mind.
Yeah. It's about being receptive. So there is no postures in yoga nidra. It's about the mind, calming the mind. And when you walk into yoga nidra class, and I've done quite a couple here, then you start to think, well, why are these people here? They know what yoga nidra is, clearly, but they've chosen to come here
to do quote unquote nothing.
Exactly.
Right? Why I can do nothing when I'm at home lying on my sofa. So why do I have to come here? It's a matter of there's something else. There's the energy. There's you as the facilitator having to hold space for all these people and having to hold space for all these different things flying around, you know?
Exactly. And it might be the only place they ever get to do that. I think that's really important to remember. Like restorative yoga, wow. When I did my training for restorative yoga, and I did on my students as well recently, the amount of support that people need, that they don't know that they need, that you can provide as a practitioner. Those are such important things that nobody thinks about. You know, some of them, again, like in my yin yoga class, some people just come there and they don't do the postures. I have a lady who sits in this corner, and I'm pointing to my left side, and I love her. And she used to come to my yin yoga class every Friday, and she would just sit and prop herself up with everything and cover herself, and she would just close her eyes. She wouldn't sleep, but she would just close her eyes and be there. And I loved it. I just thought it was the most gratifying thing as a teacher to have someone want to come and be with you just to be quiet. And I had a 60-something-year-old lady, an Italian woman, once in my class as well. And she couldn't do much of the yin, because yin can be very stretchy, right? Yeah. And she couldn't do that. I had to prop her up with so many blankets and everything. And she just laid there, and afterwards she said, "You're so kind." And I just thought, oh my God, I was like, oh my God, that's the sweetest thing anyone's ever said to me. Because she didn't need a full-on practice. She needed something else, you know? And to be aware that as a teacher, you can provide that. As a human being, you can provide that to somebody else. I had once a guy who couldn't do anything, and he was so miserable. And all I had to do, he wasn't miserable, he was just uncomfortable in yin. And I literally had to use triple the amount of props on him than anybody else. But the minute I put the props down on him and propped his back up or something, whatever it was, he just looked at me with this look in his eyes like, okay, now I'm fine. It's so gratifying. That's why I teach yoga, because it is gratifying. It's a wonderful thing to do for people, to be able to facilitate a little bit of peace, a little bit of hope, a little bit of quietness in their lives. Everyone needs it. And I think that's why I've gone down the more quiet route of yoga for myself, because I need it. And another thing I think is that we teach what we need. I'm very much a believer that you teach what you need.
That is true.
All the time. And that's why I love to teach yin yoga. I love yin yang. I love yin, yoga nidra, restorative, because I need those things in my life as well. And to teach it brings it into my life in a form.
Okay, that's interesting. Something to think about.
Yeah, I think if you think a little bit about it, again, I'm not coming back to the same thing of what do you need? What do you need in your life? And it reflects in your teaching, clearly. A lot of people, I know Ashtanga teachers who are very disciplined, but their backgrounds are very strong, you know what I mean? And they require that, all their personalities are very strong, they require that discipline. You can see it in them, and you can see it in what they teach, and you can see it in the people who come to their classes.
If you pay attention, and if you're a little bit more aware, you start to see how people are. You can understand why they chose a certain path in terms of yoga.
Exactly.
Because let's say you're very fiery, you need that balance of the yin.
Yeah.
If you're too fiery, you also need the discipline that comes from Ashtanga. Or if you're too passive, you need the power and the push from Bikram.
Exactly.
And you see that naturally people will gravitate towards that.
Exactly. You're smiling like that.
I love it. Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
Personal branding as a yogi. This is what you taught us in my TT. So, it's also your specialty as
a professional. It's my work.
You're a brand specialist, consultant. So I'm sure you have a lot of things to share about this. What is it in terms of what is a personal branding as a yogi? What's it for? What does it mean? And what does it mean to be an authentic teacher?
Whoa. Okay.
I prepare these questions, man.
I can see. Well, that's a difficult one, Aaron. That's hard, but
take your time if you need to.
Personal branding. We are, and I start the module like this, which I taught to you, and I will be teaching again. Actually, I've taught it quite a couple of times, and I'll be teaching it again soon. Personal branding. We, as a yoga teacher, you are your own commodity, and you are your own brand. Many of the influencers that we see have perfected their personal brands. Any of the big ones that you see around the world, I can't think of any now.
Talking about the teacher or the company?
The teacher.
Oh, okay.
The teacher. More than the company. Because the company is made up of powerful teachers, isn't it?
Right, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you walk out of the studio, people will, or let me put it a different way. People will gravitate towards a teacher more than a studio, and you see it because when teachers move, students move. That's what personal branding is about. And whether or not you know it or not, you are continuously feeding your own personal brand. And now the way I'm going to approach it in the new module of personal branding, because it's changed since I taught it the last time, is there's 3 things. Your physicality, your education, and your philosophy.
Ooh.
Which will contribute to your personal brand.
Okay.
Your education is the building blocks. Like, what are your qualifications? Which is the basis of it. You know, and I'm not saying it's the only thing, but what are you expert in? What have you learned? And I don't mean just learning in formal education, formal yoga education. I mean in many, many ways. What have you built up in your education? What do you know how to teach? Right.
Your resume, essentially.
Essentially, yes. What do you know how to teach? What's your expertise in teaching? Is it Ashtanga? Is it this? Or is it a range of things? Your physicality. Your physicality is an interesting one in yoga because yoga is a personal product, it's a service that you're providing. In a very commercial way, it's a service that you're providing. What do you, and I know that this is a little bit maybe annoying to people, but I've seen yoga teachers use this to their advantage dramatically. Physically, what can you offer? Are you physically able to do the amazing Ashtanga Series B, Series C, D, E, F, right? Some people can never, right? Because of purely their skeleton, their age, their disposition, whatever the case may be. What can you offer in terms of your physical being? Are you somebody who's more gentle in your being? You know, when I say your physicality, I don't just mean your body. I mean your entire temperament, your entire energy that you're offering. What are you offering in that area? We've spoken about this before. Some people are much more rigorous. They want to teach much more rigorous. Some people will only ever teach Bikram because they love it, right? Their voices are like that. They can teach in that way. You know, even their adjustments are strong, whatever the case may be, right? So what are you offering people? What can you offer in terms of your physical presence? People have used their own race, their gender, their sexuality sometimes, and even their physical attributes. Like we have Jessamine Stanley, who is what we would call a plus-sized yoga teacher in the States. Is that there was a trend a while ago for rather large-sized women. And apologies if it sounds a bit politically incorrect. Yeah, I can't find the right word to say it. Yes, there are larger-sized women who have become very popular yoga teachers partly because of who they are physically, right? There's a lot of those aspects that you need to look at yourself and say, okay, what can I offer physically, or in a physical form? What is the energy I'm putting out? Because I've done yoga teacher trainings with PE teachers who are just like PE teachers the whole way through. You know, that's what they are, and they're proud of it. And so they're like drill sergeants. And I've done yoga teacher trainings with people who are mothers and who bring that kind of energy with them completely. When I did kids yoga, oh my goodness, there were all these mothers of toddlers. And it was just so beautiful to see these moms wanting to be with their kids, and they were learning how to do kids yoga so they could be with their kids. But a mother of a newborn is not offering the same energy as a PE teacher. You see what I mean? So what are those aspects of yourself that you can hinge on, that you can hook onto, and you can offer people with authenticity? And that's where your authentic thing comes from. If you're a mom and you're trying to be a drill sergeant, is that authentic to you?
I see.
The gender thing, I want to talk a little bit about this because it sounds politically incorrect, but I'm going to make a case for it. When I did kids yoga, which was such a beautiful experience, the teacher said to me, are you thinking about doing children's yoga as a path? And I said, no, it's not really. I'm just doing it for myself. And she said, but consider. And this kind of broke my heart. It's one of my sadder moments in my yoga career. Not sadder, it was just very touching. I've had a lot of touching yoga moments. But this one was particularly poignant because she said to me, you are a man I was the only guy in the training. Everyone else was like 20 women and there was one me, a guy.
Then again, I don't know any guy kids yoga teachers.
Do you know that Rainbow Kids Yoga was invented by a man?
Oh.
Which I didn't know until she told me.
Okay.
She said, you're a man and you are teaching kids yoga. And then she said that most of the time a woman will be teaching kids, like 99% of the time a woman will be teaching kids yoga. But when a man teaches, he has a completely different energy to women. And consider also that for a lot of these kids, the father is not present. Which I thought was really, and then when we had that, because in kids yoga we have I think one of the last sessions is like where you invite people in, you invite your family to come and take part. And this was so touching to me. It was so interesting because when we had that session, we had the moms and dads come to the yoga studio. The dads all stood outside, and the moms came in and did yoga with the kids. It was the students themselves plus extended friends and family who we invited. But there were almost no men in the room with the kids partaking and being physical with their children. They all stood outside and watched. And she said, as a man teaching, it's very special for kids. And this woman has taught kids yoga her whole life, basically, and she's a trainer. And she said, because you'll be very special as a man teaching children, because it's so rare and the energy that you carry is very different, and kids see it as something completely different, and the attraction to a man is very different from what she was trying to say is, I'm being inarticulate, but what she was trying to say is you'll be very special if you as a man teach kids yoga, because it's a very different energy and it's very different from what people expect. And it's very special for children to physically interact like that. And then I saw it actually happening where the dads, they were interested in taking part.
That's true. Because, I mean...
And yet the kids were in there and they were looking at the dads outside. And they were like, Daddy, come and be with us. And the dads just... And yet the moms are all over it.
Oh, man. I see.
It was such a beautiful revelation. And it really touched me. I was like, wow. Point being, maybe you don't even know what you have to offer in different scenarios. Everything I say to you today is just my own experience, right? My own thoughts and my own experience. But I think it's useful to share with people, and it's useful for people to listen and say, okay, well, what can I really offer in the world that I'm living in, right? And so back to that point, your physicality, what can you offer? And your gender does play a role in it. It does. Yoga is a largely female-dominated industry, right? What can you offer with your background, your nationality? As I said, my ex-partner taught in Japanese, Chinese, and English in one.
Right.
You know, are there Japanese people out there who would love to have an all-Japanese? Can you speak Japanese? Okay, well then there's your target audience. Yeah. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, are you a specialist? I went to training with a woman who was a Pilates specialist for women's issues. You know, prenatal, there's all kinds of things that you can offer and that you can share with people, and that forms part of what you can offer in your. And I don't like the word physicality, but I'm just going to use it because I can't find a better word right now.
Essence? Qualities?
Yeah, qualities is a nice thing. What are the qualities that you can offer with authenticity to people who need them?
Wow.
So that's the second bubble. So there's three bubbles in the personal branding. The first bubble, if you remember, was your education, right? What are your stats? What are your qualifications? What are you qualified to teach safely? And it comes down to safety. It comes down to rigor. It comes down to knowledge. It comes down,
efficiency, how you are, how you carry yourself, just the practical skills.
The practical skills of being a yoga teacher. Then the second one is qualities. And I think I might just use that
what are you born with?
What can you offer? And then the authentic part comes into that. What can you offer with authenticity? And that, I'm afraid, takes quite a while for people to understand.
I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Like say, even for me, where let's say I knew that I could offer this thing, but then I wanted to offer that thing because that was the cool thing at that time, or that was what I enjoyed, so I want to do that instead. And then I try to do that, and then whenever you say or whatever you do it. It just sounds weird. It's not your words. And if you can tell, everybody else can tell. Because people have this innate ability to detect inauthenticity. They know if you're bullshitting them. They know if this is not the way you sound outside. Why your accent suddenly changed one? They know. And like, how come you outside you can talk like that? And then after you come in like, breathe, inhale, exhale. Like, where did this come from? Something is off.
And think about the teachers, and not just to you, Aaron, to everybody who's listening out there. The teachers that you love and respect the most. Aren't they the most authentic ones?
Exactly.
The ones that you remember from so many years back. Aren't they the most authentic ones? And I'm not saying that being authentic is all about being soft and gentle. No. I remember doing Bikram in the studio, which I've done lots of things in the studio that I'm sitting in. And I remember one of the teachers who was a power teacher, and she was teaching Bikram. My goodness, I could never forget the way that she taught. And she was just like that. I think she was an ex-gymnast or she was something, but she delivered that with such conviction that I never forgot that class. And I've had multiple teachers across multiple disciplines do that for me, whether it's kids yoga, whether it's restorative. They're all different kinds of people, but the ones that we remember and the ones that make an impact are the ones who deliver with authenticity. It's something that I think it's kind of the biggest question for most yoga teachers, and I think it takes a long time to understand what you can authentically offer people.
It does take a long time. Yeah. It takes a lot of understanding of the self as well, and experience of how you teach and how you find your voice and practice. But what are some tips to speed up that process? A little bit of self-awareness, maybe?
I think it's funny that you asked the question for a tip, because I don't think you need a tip. I think you just need to be aware. You know what you love. Yeah. You know what you love. You know who you love. Do you have to ask someone, do you love that person? No, you just know it, right? Yeah. Do you love this yoga class? Actually, no. Do you like that yoga? Yes. Easy.
Yeah.
Go with what you love. Regardless of how cool it is, and there's a lot of coolness happening in yoga. Yeah. I totally get that. And it took me a while to get out of that cool factor.
It's about the ego as well, right? You want people to see you as this super strong bendy handstanding yogi, but then if that's not you, then that's weird for you to try and put on that persona. And then once you step into your own truth, then people are like, of course, I know Floyd. He's that guy that does this, of course.
Exactly. There's not even need for a tip to be more authentic. What I would say the only tip would be is follow what you love, because you can't go wrong. And you know what you love. You don't have to guess what you love. You know it already. If you just sit a little bit and think, do I love that class? Do I love this one? I like this one. Okay. It gives you the clue. You get the clue. The last one, is your philosophy.
Oh, yes.
And that's something that I'm afraid takes for me, it's taken a very long time to form a philosophy around yoga. And I think I've hinted at my own philosophy around yoga through this entire conversation. Right. And my philosophy about yoga is enjoy it, feel good about it, and be truthful to yourself in the practice. Those are the 3 prongs that I follow all the time. And again, maybe a fourth one within that, what do you need? That's my philosophy. I want to always enjoy my practice. Always. I always want to look forward to my practice. I don't want to dread going into that class or my own practice if it's a self-practice. Enjoy it. Feel fulfilled when you do it. Be there, be present, and deliver what you need to yourself. The rest of it can just come later. So it's, from what I mean by the philosophy, it's all about fulfilling your specific needs. People's philosophies might be about power and achievement. People's other philosophies might be about all kinds of other things, But to develop a philosophy for yourself and your practice, that I think it takes quite a while.
That was actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask you as well. Because from your Instagram, you post a lot of stuff, like as abstract as some of the stuff that you post. There is a theme that I noticed, and that theme, to me, if I interpreted it, it's always about self-care and self-compassion. And like what you just said, like what your practice is, you just explained it, in that way. So that's quite interesting to hear.
It might not be the most popular thing to hear. Everyone forms their own philosophy of yoga. And the funny thing is, you probably already have a philosophy of yoga. If you
yeah,
practice it,
yeah.
if you're practicing yoga, you've got some idea.
You like say, for if I were to give my own example through my own experiences of how when I always practice, I always took my time. I always breathed a little bit longer, and I never really cared about whether I was catching up to class, and that has always just been the thing I did until I realized like, oh, okay, this is trying to tell me something. Maybe I like a little bit slower. Maybe I like it in a certain way. And then through the body is already telling you, just you need the awareness to pick up on it. You know, why do I always close my eyes in the practice? Is it to help me focus? Is it to help me bring awareness back to the breath? Is it to not distract myself? All these things that you already did it long time ago. For years, I've always been practicing this way. Or why do you always take the front mat or the back mat? What does that mean? Why do you always take option 3? Why do you never take option 1? You know, all these things are telling you what kind of person you are and how you want to teach eventually, or what path that you need to choose. So then, in that way, that is how you can find your authenticity.
Exactly. Those things, the things that I talk about are, all of them are quite formative, but that's what comes down to personal brand. It comes down to personal branding. That's why I made you guys do the exercise about what could you offer to. I think that was part of the exercise I did with you. What can you offer to the world? Some people don't get it. Some people do. Some people don't. It just depends. But that's what the exercise is about. Is as you go out there, what do you? It's personal branding, yeah. But you know what it really is? It's about what can you offer the world. And I'm not saying that you need to be vastly different or new. There's a need for that, but there's also many needs that you'll find along the way. And that's really what it's about. What can you offer the world, and why are you doing this? Do you want to be an Instagram hero? Okay, cool, then just admit that. Then be that. Then be that bendy, cool, person doing, I don't know, God knows what, on a rock somewhere in Japan or whatever.
Topless, hanging on the ledge by the cliff in
the
Bali.
The sexualization of yoga is a completely different story. That's another topic completely. But it's really about what can you offer the world. When I go to any teacher training, I always think, what I'm going to offer people after this. And some things, I must say, some things I've realized I will never teach. Like, I don't think I'll ever teach kids yoga. But I did, and I don't know if I'll ever teach restorative on a mass level, because I just don't know how to do that yet.
That's true.
Some things are just for you, and that's a really good point. Some things are only for you. They're not for anybody else. And we live in a world where everything we have has to be shared on social media. Every experience that we have has to be shared.
That's true. That is true.
We're in
every meal that we have, every place that we go. Look where I am. Look at what I'm eating. Look who I'm with.
There's a sentence that if it didn't go on Facebook, it never happened, right?
Yeah.
But some things in this life and in your yoga journey are just for you. Like I said, I've done lots of trainings and I love them. And I'm not boasting about it, but I just love doing them. But I don't think I'll ever teach kids yoga. But what I learned, I teach my yin yoga classes like I would teach a kids yoga class. In some ways. In some ways, yeah. Exactly.
Because it still requires a certain level of intuition.
Exactly.
And that persona that you need to carry through.
Exactly. And when I do restorative, my yin has become more restorative than it ever used to be after restorative yoga. But I don't know if I'll ever teach a full-on restorative yoga class, but it influences many other things. So not everything has that. Not everything has to be done and
for a purpose,
achieved and for the outward world to see. Sometimes it's just for you to bring into yourself.
So interesting.
And to enrich yourself.
That is also part of like the philosophy of yin.
Exactly. The receptivity and the openness. Yeah. Do you teach yin?
I teach yin here.
Okay.
I don't have a yin like what do you call it, CTE?
Yeah.
But then I teach it from experience.
Okay. Yeah.
And I like it.
You like it?
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, I like it.
Right.
Yeah.
You just like it.
I like it.
See, that's enough.
Yeah.
I think.
I like it, and people need it, and there's a different crowd that comes to it.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, you don't see the. Sometimes you see the super strong ones. They come. Sometimes you see the aunties or the pregnant women. sometimes you see the big strong men. So it's a very strange group. You never know who you're going to see. In the vinyasa class, you always know, okay, maybe it's that guy or this person. You've seen them before, but in the end, I see different people. Yeah, it's a very different energy.
Yes, completely.
There are times when I first taught in my previous studio, I would always play music. It's always some soft music, and I really enjoyed it. And then after a while, I stopped playing music.
Oh wow!
Because
the bare bones
it's
one. Wow.
silent yin, and it was. It's good and bad sometimes, but mostly good for me, because if you have the right people coming to the class and they just want to come and unwind, the music, whether it's playing or not, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Then sometimes if you have new people who come, then they are just eyes open all the time. They're like, they don't know what to expect. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to sleep? But then if you manage to because like I'm supposed to listen, so they're just staring at the sky. And at the beginning, I would be very self-conscious, like, oh, it's kind of weird. Can you close your eyes? Like, I'll just play some music to distract myself, make it not so awkward. But then after a while, the person having the eyes open doesn't have anything to do with you.
No.
It's just maybe I'm just sort of meditating by zoning out at a point in the ceiling, or I just want to really be present in my body, and opening my eyes helps with that. Or maybe I don't want to sleep. I want to feel what I'm feeling. And then let me open my eyes. What's the big deal? And then you realize that, and then you're like, it is no big deal. I'm back to be able to. I'm more equipped to hold the space now. And then I realize, like, music, all this kind of thing. It's sometimes it's a distraction. Sometimes I feel like playing it, I'll play. No big deal. But then sometimes I like to just sit and quiet, because the studios at home have some ambience.
Yes.
There's an echo, there's the traffic, there's
they're not completely,
it's not completely
isolated.
dead silence.
Exactly.
There is still the sounds of the world passing you by, and I feel like that is enough for you to focus on the birds chirping, the people walking by, the traffic, the horns, the whatever, even the humming of the AC or the fans. That's enough for me. So I really like that.
Cool. Nice.
What?
Okay, go
ahead.
No,
continue.
No, there's nothing. I was just wondering what else I was going to say, but I'm sure your question will prompt it anyway.
What is your truth, and how do you communicate your philosophy through personal branding of your own? I guess you've sort of talked about it, but then I want to be a little bit more specific.
You see, the thing is with personal branding is that I think it does change as you change.
That's true. And you have to give it space to change. Because you are changing. Everything is changing. And if you still hold on to whatever you were 10 years ago, then you're not fulfilling the authenticity part already.
I don't know how people see me, to be honest. As a yoga teacher, I don't know how people see me.
You will never be able to see how you see yourself as a teacher, because you will never be able to attend your own class.
Exactly. And no one's ever told me.
They will always say, oh, it's great, I love it, whatever. Exactly. But then you don't know how you are.
Exactly. But I do know when people appreciate me. So what was your question about personal branding, right? I forgot the question.
Your philosophy, and how do you communicate that through personal branding?
I think my philosophy... I've kind of danced around it in this discussion, haven't I? I've spoken a little bit about it, but I think what is my philosophy and how do I communicate it through personal branding?
I guess it was what you mentioned about how you want your students to feel and how you want to...
I want to be, I want to be a human being, which we forget that we're yoga teachers and we're humans as well. We're flawed and we're not perfect, and we have questions, and we're not gurus. I mean, many of us, maybe some of us are. I don't know. That's fine. But I want to be human in front of my students. I want to be a normal person who's just on this journey with them. I find that to be the most authentic thing, and I would like to be seen as that kind of person, especially when I come into especially yin yoga. I mean, I talk a lot about yin yoga because it's a very special place in my heart, very special. When I come into the class, I want them to just see me as someone who's just going to guide a little bit and then let them be. I don't want to adjust all the time. I don't want to force them into doing things that they don't need to do. I want to allow them to discover who they are on their own, which people are very afraid of. And that's a terrifying thing about some yoga practices, is allowing people to discover what they are, what are their limits, what are their tolerances on their own. My ideal yoga class would be one where I actually don't even talk at all. The less present I am, the more they take the responsibility on themselves to understand their practices and their bodies. The more you talk, not the more you talk, the more you instruct, the less responsibility people take on themselves.
That is very interesting.
Have you noticed that?
Yes.
In a Bikram class, you do not need to think at all. And this is not a bad thing about Bikram, but Bikram
you,
is designed to tell you exactly what to do in exactly what formation, and there is no deviation. And I've been doing Bikram for a very long time, and I've done a lot of it, and it's an amazing practice. Don't get me wrong at all. But the instructions are very specific and very clear. And you could do Bikram with your eyes closed. You really can. Do it enough times and you could do it with your eyes absolutely closed. And you go in, if anyone out there does Bikram, you know you go into that rhythm, or Ashtanga, you go into the rhythm where you don't need to question what's next. You know what's coming next. You know where to get there, and you know where you can push and where you can pull and everything. There are other forms of yoga which allow more of the practitioner to take charge, I think. And I think Yin's one of them. There's others. Nidra, all the quieter ones allow you to take charge. So my ideal practice would be one where I don't actually talk that much. It would be much less talking, a couple of instructions, and then let them be, and let them discover where they are.
Oh, I've never thought of that as a way to teach Yin, but wow. We're so high up and we can still hear
I know,
it,
right? Yeah, the studio.
But that's so interesting, because I agree. The more you instruct, the less that the students will like. If you keep instructing everything, they're not going to take responsibility for their own bodies. No. If you tell them to just hop into the handstand by doing this, then they will do it, because they're not going to not do it, and then that might. What am I saying? I don't know what I'm saying. I take it all back. But I get what you mean, where the more you spoon feed, you're not going to learn anything. You get a bit more complacent. You get a bit more annoyed sometimes.
You become reliant.
Yeah, reliant.
On an external force, and you don't take the initiative.
And that doesn't develop a lot
your
of
own body
awareness. It doesn't develop your intuition.
Exactly. Allowing someone else to tell you how you're feeling. In a lot of ways.
That's true.
And this is not a criticism of those practices. Again, we live in a multiverse. There's so many different types of practices, physical, non-physical, and all of them have a place. But your question was, what is my philosophy and what is my approach? And that is the way I like to teach it. I do not like to speak a lot in the class. I'll give a few instructions and help them with the props or whatever. And most of the time I'll just say, these are the options. Find your posture. Raise your hand and I'll help you. And that's it.
That's all you need.
That's all that they need. It's not what I need, it's what they need.
That's true. And once you say that, that's all you say, you start to see people experiment.
And
where do I put my block?
So gratifying.
How should I put my legs?
Yes.
Do I need a pillow here?
Yes.
And you see that, and that's how they will do it the next time they come. Exactly. And that's how they will do it forever until they need to adjust again.
Exactly.
Because then they know, I had a shoulder injury here. I shouldn't extend it too much that way. I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. But I can do this, I can do that, because I tried it myself, and that's how I feel. But then if you have a teacher that comes in, especially for Yin, you can put your leg like that, or like this, or like that. You can put your block here, here, or here. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Pop. And then I have 4 blocks under me, and then I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I've sort of lost awareness of what the point of this was, and I just do what the teacher says, which is very strange.
It's a very interesting thing that people are not comfortable with at all. My students who come to me for those kind of practices, they know that I will do that.
Right.
So they expect that, and they already know what they want to do with the props. The ones who've been coming a few times, or who are more invested in their yoga practice, they know how to put the blocks to suit their own bodies.
Right.
I can give options, but they'll just do it. But a lot of people come in waiting for instructions. You can see them in the face. You watch them. They're eagerly awaiting the next instruction. But you don't give it. And you just leave them. And these are intelligent people. They'll work it out. You identify, for yin, you'll identify where's the target area that you're stretching. Is it the buttocks, is it the hamstrings, whatever. They know when their hamstrings are being stretched, surely. I don't think I'm giving too much credit to people to understand that. How to get there. Just a few instructions and then leave them. And also, you don't want to force. I've seen students just not do postures because they just don't like it, or they're feeling very uncomfortable with it. I've had a lot of students actually who, what is the one posture that we do? They just don't do it. There's one particular posture that I remember that they just don't like doing it, or certain of them don't, and they just sit it out. And I allow them to do that, because it's maybe they've got some back issue, or they've got something happening, and or halfway through, they just can't take it any longer. Like if it's a seal posture, which is kind of like a
try
cobra.
Engaging, yeah.
Yeah, it's too much. Then I just allow them to drop out of it once they've reached their maximum. So back to your question, that is the way that I kind of deal with being authentic to my practice, authentic to my students. In my opinion, the less present I am, the more they will feel into their practice. And I'm always there for support and help. And especially with new students who don't know where to put anything, then you need to
need to instruct.
You need to go in, but you can do it with them, And sometimes students just need a bit of reassurance. Like, okay, you're okay. You're doing it okay.
Yeah.
Like some of them will be, is this okay? It's just like, because the room is silent, and then they're on one corner, and they're like, putting the hand up, they're like, is this the right thing? Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, does it feel good? Then it's the right thing to do.
Where are you feeling the stretch?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Go for it.
That's true.
Are you feeling okay? Do you want more blocks? That's fine. And just let them be.
Yeah.
So I don't know how people see me, but I would like to be seen as that kind of quite human, quite simple, and approachable guide. I'm using the word guide as opposed to teacher in a lot of ways. That will just help them to feel a little bit better from the time that they came in to the time that they leave.
I like that answer. I like it a lot. It's something for me to think about as well.
Why?
Like if I think of my own philosophies and how that is a nice philosophy, maybe I want to add that into mine, or maybe I want to adapt it, or I want to grow in that way. It is very interesting, and it's authentic, and I guess my philosophies always revolve around honesty and authenticity as well. So that is part of it, So I resonate with it. I was thinking about this morning actually about truth and honesty. Both are the same things, right? And if people ask me what is my truth, or what do I resonate with at its core values, right? What are my core values? I don't say truth, I say honesty. But then they're sort of the same, and I rationalize in this way where truth is undeniable. Truth is left and right. There is no
black and white.
It's black and white.
Yeah.
It's ultimate. Like, this is wrong, this is right. 1 is 1, 0 is 0. It's undeniable. Honesty is a choice. Honesty is an act. I have to choose to be honest, right? Like, the truth is here. Let's say you cannot get into a full splits. That is the truth. And you being honest with yourself is telling you that truth. You can lie to yourself. I mean, if I keep doing my Hanuman, 1 year later I'll be able to get it. But then that's not the truth. And you're lying to yourself. You're not being honest to yourself. So then honesty is a facilitator of that truth.
Yes. Yeah.
So the truth will always be there regardless of what happens within you.
Yeah.
The truth externally, the sun is hot, the water is cold.
Yeah.
These are universal truths.
Yes.
But then it's up to you to be honest with yourself, which comes from awareness, and it also comes from responsibility, like other people telling you to, like, being honest to you, like, hey bro, you gotta, don't do this, or you should do that, or whatever. They're being honest out of concern for you. But it's also a way of facilitating the real truth.
Yeah.
And once you can be in unison with that, once you can connect with all that, then it becomes like something that I want to carry forward. You know.
Yes.
I like it.
Good. It's hard to live your own truth.
It's hard to face that.
It's hard to face your own truth and even your own philosophies. That, what I've just told you now, it took a long time to get there for me to admit, because also I have the body and I know I have the physical ability to do all those hardcore things, you know. You know what was interesting about authenticity and that kind of thing? When I did my Ashtanga training, which was nightmarish for me, but not physically. It was emotionally nightmarish because I really don't like the practice of Ashtanga. Just personally, I just don't resonate with it very much. And when I went to the training, I said to the teacher, who I really love her, and I said to her, oh gosh, I really don't like this practice. In the beginning of the training, in front of everyone, I was like, I don't like this practice.
This is 200 hours.
Oh no, it was like a shorter. It was like a shorter thing. I don't know how many.
10, 100 hours, 10, whatever.
Something like
week,
that. Yeah. I went with the express purpose of expanding my knowledge of yoga as a teacher. But every point along the way, as much as I tried, I was like, this doesn't resonate with this practice at all. And you know, you can't force it.
Yeah.
You can't. There's a lot of stuff that I use from that training that I still use in my personal practice. I will still use a lot of what I learned. It was brilliant. But it was so funny to try and force yourself to do something that you really don't want to do.
And Ashtanga, Bikram, all these kinds of styles requires you to fall in love with it.
Exactly.
It's a daily practice. You gotta do it 6 days a week.
And I
6
have the
a.m.
highest respect for people who do that.
It requires a lot of discipline. And it will pay off if you put in the work.
Totally.
Ashtangis can do a lot of things, and they are of a particular,
breed.
They're a breed. Just like Bikram people are a breed. When you walk, once a Bikram class ends, you open the door, you see the kind of people that walk out. You know that these guys are Bikram hot yogis. You know these guys are in the Mysore people.
And I love that. I love that we have so much diversity. I love that we have so much diversity, and I think that, and the pride with which they carry themselves. You know,
it's well deserved as well.
It's well deserved, but you can be proud of many other things as well. You know,
anything taken in the wrong way can be like, say, as wonderful as Ashtanga is. I was having this conversation with Edmund. Yeah,
nice.
He said his take on Ashtanga is that Ashtanga is meant for a particular type of people, the Vata body type, right? The flexible, and it's structured in a way where you can't progress until you put your foot behind your head, until you do your whatever.
Yeah.
So if you then anatomically can't do it, you're forced to do it.
Yeah.
You have to do it, right? In order to progress. So that if you can't, then you might end up feeling like, oh shit, I can't do it. Maybe I am a terrible Ashtangi. And if you can do it, maybe then there is a arrogance that comes with it. You know? So anything like that can be misconstrued. If you are a type A lawyer, hard-headed, like I come to practice every day, I'm 100% on the mat and very strong, the Ashtanga practice might not be good for you because
it only feeds that.
Yeah, it feeds that. You're forced to do it. Like, I'm gonna fucking gonna bring my butt down. It might hurt you. But whereas if you're the little bit more on the shy side, I'm not sure whether I try. Maybe I'm gonna try. And then one day you progress, and like, hey, this is kind of cool. I managed to do it. So then you build confidence. The practice grants you that confidence, and then you carry that outside. So then, like all these things, like it can help and it can hurt. It's just how you perceive it and whether you're aware to see what helps and what hurts.
Exactly. And it takes a while to do that. It takes a while.
It comes with experience, life experience,
Sometimes it takes an injury to do that.
It does.
To you, to make you hyper-aware. This is the wrong thing that I'm doing to myself. You know, and I always encourage, that's why I did the Ashtanga training as well, for contrast. if I sit always in yin yoga and restorative,
Yeah.
I become a certain...
It's imbalanced already.
Exactly. So I did that purposefully for the contrast. Like, I've got to try this. There's got to be something that I can take out from this that's going to inform everything else. And truly there was.
Yeah.
It was torturous. But it was...
But there was a lesson to be learned.
Oh, I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And I learned so much about it. Not just that I didn't like the practice, but I learned so much other stuff about myself when I was doing it.
Right.
You know, my body was gorgeous when I was doing it. I remember that. I was like lean and tough. But I was also very edgy. My personality type is not the type for that kind of thing. So that was my little learning about that.
Right. As much as the yoga provides, the yoga can take away from you as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a wonderful tool to learn more about yourself. I think people view it in that way. That you might not always be doing this type. Just because you like it now, because you're doing it doesn't mean you can't do something else, or you won't change, or you won't want to do something else. That adaptability and that acceptance. You know, my body's getting older now. I'm like 41 at the end of this year. I can still do some of the things that I used to do, but I actually really don't want to. Because I just don't.
Because you're not interested anymore.
I'm not interested anymore. My psyche, my mind and my heart is elsewhere.
The intention of the pose is no longer to impress people.
Exactly.
It's for yourself.
Exactly.
And it takes a long time for you to come to terms with that. Like, I am doing this for myself.
Yeah.
I don't need to show off. I don't need to do this for you. I don't need to prove anything. This is for me. And if I want to do it, I'll do it because I can.
Yeah.
If I don't want to do it, then I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And fuck you, you know,
Exactly.
like this is what I want to do.
Exactly.
And that takes a lot of ownership and it takes a lot of honesty as well.
Yes, it takes a long time. A long time. Oh gosh.
You want to wrap it up?
Yeah. Are you good?
I'm good.
Yeah. Anything other questions you have?
I have, but like, I think we can end on this note.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. My pleasure.
How can people reach you?
I'm on and off social media because
Because
they can always find, my Instagram tag is F for Florida, L for London, O for Office, Y for Yellow, the number 2, letter D, FLOY 2D is my Ashtanga handle. Ashtanga handle, gosh. Instagram handle. And you'll be able to see it because all my posts are black and white that I put up there. A warning that I do not post a lot of stuff about yoga on there because yoga is very private to me. But if any questions or whatever, you can always ask me there, you know. I'm on and off it, so I might not reply immediately, but you're most welcome.
And if they want to find you at home, they can also find your classes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Home classes I teach
on.
on at the moment I'm teaching on Fridays because I don't teach as much anymore. I'm teaching on Fridays at Raffles Place. I'm teaching tonight, and I do yin yang there, and I will probably eventually be doing more. I'm in part of the teacher trainings as well. Lee's got teacher training coming up, and I will probably be doing more kind of workshops and stuff. I do play singing bowls and do Reiki and those kind of things as well, and I have done those as workshops here, and I probably will do it again at some upcoming point.
Stay tuned.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Floyd.
Thank you.
I think we're done.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, that was it. That was the podcast. I'm glad. I hope you enjoy it. If you see him in class, you know, say hi to him. Tell him you listen to the podcast. You know, just get to know him. It's all good. And if you like what you hear, oh shit, just banged the table. If you like what you hear, share it with your friends. Repost this on your IG stories. Tag me, then I'll repost it as well. You can support the podcast. Donate to the coffee page. Link in the description. Let me know if you have any. Let me know if you have any questions about anything, about what we talked about anything. Just, you know, reach out to me. I would love to say hi. Say hi to me at the studio. I'll say hi back. Here's the thing. I feel I need to make a disclaimer. Like, sometimes people do reach out to me at the studio and then they say hi, and I'm always like before I'm teaching or after I'm teaching, I'm always in this phase where I'm like super exhausted. So I won't really like talk to them back. I feel so bad, but like I don't mean to be standoffish. Like, I think I met like 2 or 3 people, and I'm just like awkwardly like, oh yeah, hi, and then like I just faster run off. But anyway, I apologize. I'm honestly, I'm not so tao lah, right? Anyway, always happy to reach out to people and to hear and to, just meet new people. I'm all for that. Well, what else I want to say? So like the past few guests, oh shit. The past few guests were all teachers from home, and I'm happy to talk to everybody at home. There's a lot of interesting people that I want to speak to. Copper, Gwen, John, all the, Ashtanga, Hot Yoga, all these different people with all the different styles, Henry, Universal, Sita. There's a lot of people that I want to talk to, Sheena, and so on, Iris, Inversions, whatever, the list goes on. But I didn't want to saturate it by having so many home teachers in one go. So for sure, I'll still reach out and talk to them, but I want to still diverse and bring you people from other, places, studios and whatever, and even just my random friends who may or may not be yogis themselves, to bring them on. So I'll try and to balance it all out. But then it takes so long to create a podcast, so then by the time I want to talk to them, it's like 2-3 weeks later. Anyway, just me ranting. What else? It's Tuesday night, 2 p.m. 8 p.m. It's surprisingly quiet today, so I was like, oh shit, very quiet. I'm gonna faster just record this. Okay lah, that's it. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye everyone.